Perek Ches, Mishnah Hey. An extremely complicated Mishnah. There are many different ways this Mishnah could be explained. There's the view of Tosfos and Sukkah, the first view of Tosfos and Sukkah, which is the one we're going to do, which is also the parish of the Rosh and the Rosh. There's another derech in Tosfos, and then there's the Gaon. So let's stick with the first view of Tosfos and Sukkah Daf Tes Zayin, which is also the parish of the Rosh and the Rosh. Mitosh Hoysot Medris, dealing with a bed, and a bed has got the following, made out of the following pieces of wood. There's a frame, two long pieces called, each one's called the Arucha, and then there's one at the head and one at the foot called the Ketzara, and then of course you have four legs. Says the Mishnah, Nitla Ketzara Ushtei Kira'ayim Timea. The important thing to understand with this mission is we are not talking about a broken bed. We're dealing with a bed which is just being taken apart. It's kula kayemes. All the pieces, after the nitla ketzara shtei karaim, the pieces are all intact, lying separately. And also another condition is v'datei lachzira. The intention is to remake the bed, put it together again. In such a case, we hold that when you take a bed apart, the tumah which the bed had still stays on, and the individual pieces are still tomei, because they're all soon going to be put together again. Says the Tanna Kama, Nitla Ketzara Ushtei Kra'ayim. If one of the shorter pieces of the frame, the piece of the frame which is at the head or the one at the foot of the bed, is taken off with the two legs, so you have like a little ches coming off, and the rest of the bed is still intact. Timea. Timea means the bit which is left behind, that means the bulk of the bed, plus the ches shape of the ketzara and the shtei kra'ayim, all of the pieces are actually tomei. They retain the tumah that they had. However, arucha shtei kra'ayim tahira, if it's one of the long pieces and its two legs, so now you have a ches with a very long roof, Tanna Kama holds the bed is now considered to be, although all the pieces are intact, the intention is to put them all together again. However, the bed is now so broken, it's tahir. Rabbi Nechemia Metame, he says even in that case, we've taken off the arucha on the shtei kra'ayim, it's still got the same din that the Tanna Kama said applies to the ketzara and shtei kra'ayim, and all the pieces are tomei. Let me add a little bit more explanation here. Because we're dealing with the bed, all the pieces being kula kayemes, plus we're dealing with date lachzira, it's all easily able, and the intention is to put it together again. The din is that if the pieces, the broken pieces, still have what's called a tashmish kol dahu, they're still able to be used somewhat and easily, then the din applies, everything still remains tomei. However, in the case when the ketzara and the shtei kra'ayim is removed, it's actually very easy to use the bed by pushing the thin part of the bed against the wall and leaning it there, and therefore it can still be used as a bed. Because it's still got a tashmish kol tahu, all the pieces, the ketzara and the shtei kra'ayim, and the rest of the bed are all still tomei. Rabbi Nechemi says, even if you remove the aruch on the shtei kra'ayim, well, now it's a little bit harder because you've taken out the long piece, and now when you want to use the bed against the wall, you've actually got to support the whole length of the bed against the wall. Rabbi Nechemi says that's still called enough of a tashmish, that because you've got kula kayemes and date lachzira, that's still tomei. Tanna Kama says you're going too far. If it's just the ketzara and the kra'ayim have been removed, then you can still use date lachzira and kula kayemes to be metame the bed. Rabbi Nechemi says even with the arucha and the shtei kra'ayim, it's still got this din of tomei because kula kayemes and date lachzira. What else you have to know is that when the Tanna Kama says, everybody agrees, Nitla Rucha, Uktsara, Shtei Kra'ayim Timeo. And according to Rabbi Nechemi, he says, even if the Arucha, Shtei Kra'ayim, it's still tummy. This din of Tumah applies even if the bed was actually tahor. They say the pieces left can now be makabel Tumah as they are in their disjointed state. That's fact number one. Fact number two is, when it says tahira, in other words, when you take off the Arucha Shtei Kra'ayim, Tanna Kama says you've dismantled the bed to such an extent, all the pieces are now tahor. The Tanna Kama agrees, and this is all important for later Mishnah, is the Tanna Kama agrees that although it's tahor now, when you put it all together again, the Kula Kiyemes and Da'at Achazira is able to say that the old Tumah will come back. It's Chayzer Tumos HaYeshana, although we've had the expression with the Kli Matchis, it does apply to a bed which is dismantled and put back to pieces. But the Mishnah isn't talking about the Tumah coming back, we're talking about now, as it is dismantled. Tanna Kama says, only if it's dismantled with the Ktsara and the Shtei Kra'ayim, then everything remains Tomei. Rabbi Nechemi says, even if you dismantle it with the Arucha and the Shtei Kra'ayim, the pieces all still remain Tomei because Kula Keyemes and Da'atoi Lahachzira. That's this way of explaining the Mishnah. And Mitzvah Shem, when we do future Mishnahs, we will come back to this. But it's important to get these Yisodos clear. The Mishnah carries on. Now we're actually leaving the sugya of Kula Kiyemes and Da'at Achzira, and we're now going on to regular bed, which you cut off pieces and actually break it. And this follows the normal pattern of rules of Shviras Keli. How much of the bed has to be broken for it to be considered to be a broken bed? Of course, once you break a bed, not dismantle it, of course, there will be a geder when it is so broken, it'll be tar simply because it's now a broken bed. And this is what the Mishnah is going to discuss now. And now we're going to go back to the Baal Tanura because it doesn't contradict what we said in the Reish of the Mishnah. Says the Mishnah, God shtei l'shonos loichasan. You've got a bed. Now these l'shonos are different from the l'shonos which we had in Mishnah Dalet. The l'shonos in Mishnah Dalet were blocks of wood which were sort of semi-detachable from the bed. These l'shonos are actually proper pieces of wood, lumps of wood, which are stuck underneath the legs of the bed, fixed to the bed and part of the bed. And what you're doing now is you've sliced some bits off them. If you slice two of them, two loichsa means two diagonals, one at the northeast corner, one at the southwest corner, or the other two diagonals. You cut two of them short, leaving the other two with the original length. Or instead of cutting the lashonos, which are the bits underneath the legs, you cut the actual legs, godad shtei kro'ayim loichsan, you actually cut the legs. You take a bit off each leg, so now the bed is completely wobbly. You cut all the legs to such an extent, you take so much of the legs off that the bed is now less than a tefach above the ground. In such a case, tahira, that's called, you've broken the bed, it is now tahir. And this sefer of the Mishnah is not connected with the Reisha, where we were not dealing with breakages, we were dealing with nisparik, removing them, dismantling the bed, where it's kula kiyemes and da'atoi l'achzira. Then we go on to Mishnah Vav.